So what was your experience working with Sanjay Leela Bhansali?
You feel, it's a visceral
Excuse me, this is the minstrels.
reaction. You can feel that you're in the presence of somebody who's brilliant.
ऐसा नजारा लेडीज रूम में कहाँ देखने को नसीब होगा?
What difference do you feel when you shoot with Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who's a master of his craft, and then when you shoot with Rajamouli, who is also equally brilliant? We would want to know from you, their approach, their style of working, how do they construct a scene, what briefs do they give to their actors, and some anecdote if you could share.
They both have this style of not wanting to release the script. So with Rajamouli, there was no script.
Yeah, the very fact that Akshay Kumar is such a huge star goes to show that people have accepted him and people like him.
Yeah.
How does it matter whether he's reading his lines from the cue cards, or he's wearing a earpiece? It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
किसी भी एक्टर का सपना होता है कि उसे बॉलीवुड में ब्रेक मिले, और सिर्फ इंडियन एक्टर्स नहीं, फॉरेन एक्टर्स भी आजकल बॉलीवुड में आते हैं और इंडिया में अपने आप को एस्टैब्लिश करते हैं. इसके कई कारण है. ग्लैमर और पैसा ही सिर्फ नहीं है, लेकिन बॉलीवुड ग्लोबल पॉपुलैरिटी देता है. आप डाइवर्स रोल्स कर सकते हैं. किसी भी एक्टर के लिए एक कल्चरल अपील बहुत जरूरी है. करियर ग्रोथ तो मिलता ही है. करियर ग्रोथ के साथ साथ आपकी कोलैब, नेटवर्किंग, ये भी बहुत अच्छी होती है. जो इकोनॉमिक इंसेंटिव है वो बिल्कुल है, और जो बॉलीवुड का प्रोडक्शन स्केल है वो भी लाजवाब है. ये पॉडकास्ट जब आप देखेंगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि फॉरेन एक्टर्स क्यों बॉलीवुड में आके काम करना चाहते हैं और क्यों इंडिया में सेटल होने को भी वो कतराते नहीं है. हमने बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग पॉडकास्ट बनाया है मार्क बेनिंगटन के साथ, जो एक एक्टर है और हीरामंडी में उन्होंने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है. तो ये पॉडकास्ट देखने के बाद आपको पता चल जाएगा द काइंड ऑफ क्लाउट that Bollywood has today at a global level. So Mark.
Hi.
Should I call you Mark or should I call you Samuel? Because at this point in time,
Henderson.
The whole country knows you as Samuel.
Henderson, yeah.
Samuel Henderson.
Yeah.
Mark, are you actually living your Bollywood dream?
I'm living a Bollywood reality.
That's a good one.
I never had the dream before coming here, so I don't know if it qualifies. But I certainly feel like I'm whatever it is I'm doing is sort of participating in this, this Bollywood conversation.
But you've had a fantastic career, so to speak. You come to India as a
That's debatable on my part.
So you come to India as a photographer.
Yeah.
Do a photo documentary book, and then the actor within you somehow starts to surface, and you start getting movies, and then you act in a couple of movies, and we are here. So how did this whole thing happen?
Yeah, it was a very that. Getting back into it, I always think of that line in The Godfather. They suck me, they suck me back in, or whatever that line is. I was very reluctant to get back into acting. So I'd been an actor in the States. In New York. I went to school in New York and did a master's program in New York. And then I did theater. I did lots and lots of theater for about 10 years in New York. And then I moved to LA. And
so you're a trained actor?
Yeah. Fully.
Yeah. But how did Bollywood happen to you? How did you get your first movie? And who was responsible for that?
We came here for our wedding 2013. And my friend Vikas Chandra, he was working with Diwakar Banerjee. And I knew that name because when I had come here to do research for the book, I was watching hundreds of films over the course of a few months. So I knew the name Diwakar Banerjee. So he said, I'm working on this thing and you'd be right for it. And so I was, again, very reluctant. I said, well, when is it shooting? I said, we're going to be in India for our wedding, the end of 2013. I said, maybe, he said, we're shooting at the beginning of 2014, like Jan. I said, well, we're going to be there. So anyway, so it just worked out. So I did the audition and, got the role. And then I started shooting that, like right after we got married. Then I found myself on the set of Byomkesh Bakshi. And Sushant was there. He was a young actor.
Sushant Singh Rajput.
Yeah. So he was there. He was a young actor, up and coming, I guess. And and Diwakar was, it was my first time, although I had done, 10 years prior or whatever, I'd done a lot of TV and whatever. This is my first like Bollywood film. And a lot of my dialogue was in Hindi. The first scene. So I kept asking, so I arrived in Calcutta and I went straight to the set. They didn't have the scene yet. I said, okay, I hope it's not in Hindi. He said, no, don't worry about it. So, of course, that's how it begins. And then I went to the hotel, kept on asking Vikas, do they have the scene yet? Do they have the scene? Yeah, no, it's coming. Didn't come. Wake up at 5 a.m, still don't have the scene. And then I get it. I go to my dressing room for my first day on the set, shooting. And I get this scene and it's all in Hindi. And I was just like,
oh my.
I really don't speak Hindi. Like, I have no idea and they're like, we're shooting in an hour. I said, how? Like, how? I said, don't worry about it. Everyone's constantly saying, don't worry about it. It's comical.
Yeah,
it's comical.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I said, but I don't know what any of these words are. So I was just started saying sounds. And that's all I was doing. I was just saying sounds together in a, particular sequence. That's all I was doing. And then I guess it was so troublesome for Diwakar that he, after the first, scene, whatever that first part of that scene was, then which made it even harder, actually, he wrote phonetically, he was writing English words phonetically that would look like the same
Hindi words.
So I would be moving my mouth at the same. And that was even harder because then I was just saying these total nonsense sentences.
Yeah.
Right?
Which did not make any sense to you.
That now I have to remember that. Plant case, sister, plucker, cup of coffee. I mean, it was like, what am I even saying?
And then how do you get the right expressions, right?
And how do you get the right expression?
Yeah.
So that whole first experience was literally, it had nothing to do with acting. I can't even, it was the furthest thing from acting I'd ever done. It felt like I was just hanging on to the edge of a cliff by my nails, like just hoping that I didn't. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy.
But you did do something right in the movie because after that movie, you got a lot of other movies. So,
well, it was a slow, it was a slow process. So I was really identified as a photographer. I mean, I would always tell people I'm a photographer. And it wasn't until 2 years later that when I came back again for the launch of this book, that, a friend of mine, Shruti, was casting this film, Parmanu. And she said...
Parmanu?
Yeah, Parmanu.
Okay.
With John Abraham. And she said, there's a bunch of Hindi. I said, okay, it's easier now because I, knew a little bit. And she said, come for the audition. I was here for the book launch, my book launch. And I, it was like the audition was on Tuesday and I wouldn't show up. I said, you know what? I don't think I can make it today. I'll go tomorrow. And I literally pushed it. I said that every day for like a week because I just was, I don't know, I was very apprehensive about acting, I was a full-time photographer. I had a studio in New York City now. And, I was like, oh God, I don't know if I want to do this again. Anyway, but I went. I thought, well, maybe, let's see, maybe it'll be a better experience. And it turned out to be a great experience. And then once I did Parmanu, then, which I feel like everyone in the world has seen, like I used to only get recognized at airports and because I think everyone had seen it on TV.
Correct. The movie was on the Pokhran Blast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, and it was a good film. It was a good film, and a lot of people liked it and saw it, and it was very patriotic, and
absolutely,
it had a good tie, a good stake in the nation, and so, and once I shot that, once I was here shooting that, then I started to get a lot of calls. My phone just
kept on ringing.
Yeah, it was ringing, and I don't know where people were getting my number, but they somehow were, and I was getting messages on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. And so suddenly I was like, well, maybe we should investigate this.
So Mark, we'll talk about your journey and, the work that you've done in Bollywood. But first, let's start by, discussing Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali and Heeramandi.
Yeah.
How was it working with one of the most brilliant minds today in Bollywood? How was your experience? Because before working with Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali, you've worked with quite a handful of directors. So what was your experience working with Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali?
He's such a, I had very few interactions with him, but when I did, because he's a giant, he's a legend.
Yeah.
And I'm, some guy who's there doing a recurring role in the show. So the interactions were few, but they were just lovely. And you can feel, it's a visceral reaction. You can feel that you're in the presence of somebody who's brilliant.
The genius.
When you first meet him, I felt very intimidated. I know I said that in another, but there was this, of course, everyone feels very excited. Everyone's nervous, like, to meet him.
You're meeting the great Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali.
Yeah, you're meeting Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
And, but he was he just walked right up and he said, hi. And he had seen, so prior to meeting him, I had already shot with a couple of nights with some assistants of his.
For Heeramandi. Yeah.
And because he was out doing Ricky for something else, for another part of the show. And so I had done some shoots with these assistants. So he had seen the footage.
Okay.
And so he walked right up. He shook my hand. He said, you're a very good actor. So that was I was like, thank you. And
that comes from the master himself.
Yeah. And it was, it just gives you such a sense of, thank you. Like you're in the right place. Yeah. It was a great feeling, and it puts everything at ease.
Correct.
So my experience with him was just fantastic. He knows what he wants. He's very precise about what he wants. It's easier to shoot with him than it is his assistants because they're, I think, very sort of nervous about getting it right. And, we would do, it was the first time I'd ever done more than, I don't even know, 10 takes. Or it was crazy. It was like 20 to 19 takes. Like the first night I shot.
19 takes?
Yeah, for one, just a master shot. It was 19 takes, I thought.
So what you're saying is this shot was being directed by his assistant directors. And because they wanted to get it right, they made you shoot for 19 times.
Yeah. And they would keep doing these minute changes, very minute. They would just move, there was a flag on the desk. They would just move like 2 centimeters. And then we'd have to do the scene again. And then they'd move, and then they'd just move a book a little bit. And then we'd do it again. And then they would send him that take wherever he was. And then he would approve or not approve. And then they would do it again. And then maybe they'd put a plant there, and then we'd do it again. I just thought, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And that was the master. And then we had to do coverage. And it took, it was like 13 hours to do one easy little 1-page scene. So that was, but now when he's shooting, it's nothing like that because he knows exactly what he wants and just boom, 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 two takes. That's it. You're done.
And you're done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Moving on. Yeah.
So you shot with Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali. You also worked with another stalwart, Rajamouli.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
RRR.
Yeah.
So, Mark, can you tell me, as an actor, what difference do you feel when you shoot with Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali, who's a master of his craft, and then when you shoot with Rajamouli, who is also equally brilliant? We would want to know from you, their approach, their style of working, how do they construct a scene, what briefs do they give to their actors, and some anecdote if you could share.
Sure. They're two, I mean, they're very, they're both giants, but they have very different, also one was a film and one was a series.
Yeah.
So there's sort of some differences there, but their personalities also seem quite different. Rajamouli was very, I didn't even know he was the director, to be honest. I didn't know who, I thought he was sort of, I didn't know who he was, but he didn't have this aura, that Bhansali has, where he walks in the room and that, somebody, a star has walked in the room. Rajamouli doesn't have that. He just sort of, he's there and you're like, oh, that's the director. You're like, oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
So he came to my trailer. I think it was my first day of shoot. He came to my trailer and sort of opened the door and his wife was there. She does costumes and they were sort of just looking at me and I was like, hi, can I help you? I thought maybe he's going to ask me what I wanted for lunch. I don't know. And, they both have this style of not wanting to release the script. So with Rajamouli, there was no script.
There's no script.
So you arrive, and when he came to my dressing room, and so then we had a conversation, and he said, "This is the character," and all of this stuff. So I didn't even really know who the character was. So my experiences were very different on both because one, I knew who the character was for the most part with Heeramandi. And with RRR, I wasn't really sure, and it was really flying by the seat of my pants because there was no script, and so when I asked for the scene, whatever we were going to shoot that day, they didn't even give me the piece of paper with the scene. They just wrote. They said, "Here, you can copy. Just write your line."
Your
lines.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do I know who's saying what before me and after me, and like how are we gonna do the? So it was really just you really just have to sort of think fast. And
do you think it is a very carefully thought out strategy on the part of these directors where they want to surprise the actors sometimes by not revealing the script or just asking you to give spontaneous expressions or spontaneous reactions to what is happening on the set?
It doesn't feel like it. I mean, traditionally, right, you have the script and you have the dialogue and the scene and you work on that and you have time to work on that. And in this case, it's sort of, and it's not that it's never been done. I mean, it's done, it's done quite a bit, but nobody knows the structure except for the director. It's all in his head. And then he's talking over with his crew about how he wants to shoot it. And but in terms of with the actors, it's a very it's a process of the unknown. It's always the process.
So it is a painful process.
Because
then how is he able to extract this level of performances from his actors?
See, but that's with me, who's somebody who is doing some minor role in a film. With the stars of the film, it could be a very different situation where they've had the scene for months and they've talked about it and rewritten, and so I'm not really sure how it is with them.
Okay.
Okay. But for, the small players, which I would consider myself in that film, certainly a very small player, it was just sort of like, here, you're going to stand here and just say this line. And so then I would just do it to the best of my, just try to do something that is got some grit and some reality to it, and be truthful. And so that's all you can do,
Yeah.
But I feel like, and in contrast, Heeramandi was not totally different, because I did see the scenes early on, so I had a sense of who this character was, although it drastically changed over the course of the year of when I first got cast, and then once we started shooting. A lot had changed story-wise, which changed the character to some degree. But the scenes that we would shoot on any given day, you wouldn't get until you would arrive on set. And then even within that period, they were still rewriting until you actually got to set. So I feel like it.
So again, there is an element of surprise for an actor, right?
Yeah, but it's surprise. It feels like it's gut wrenching, because I feel like that when I see the performance, I feel like I'm looking at a guy who's struggling to remember the lines. That's what I see. Because nobody else would think that.
Yeah.
But maybe another actor might think that, because I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it does a disservice to the storytelling, I think.
But again,
but he's a master.
And he's a master, yeah.
And that's just with me. I don't know how it was with the other actors and, the gals, the stars of the show.
But Mark, isn't it ironical that in spite of, making changes till the last minute, Sanjay Leela Bhansali can come up with her final product, which is so brilliant.
Yeah.
Whether it is cinematic brilliance, whether the performances that he gets out from his actors, music, lyrics, sets, everything seems as if, it is so meticulously planned.
Yeah.
So there is some kind of harmony in the chaos that you see on the sets.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Or in his style of working.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's highly, it's highly choreographed. Not just, it's highly choreographed, but also just backstage. Like it's incredibly organized.
It's incredibly organized.
It's incredible. I'm just talking about the perspective, just the actor having to learn the line last minute and feeling like you're in the unknown. Yeah. But we're the only ones sort of in the unknown. Like everyone else knows exactly, this light, that shadow, this color, this texture, this furniture, this style, these lines, creating the
right
palette,
frame,
the palette, the frame.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is meticulously well crafted and
then executed.
Yeah. And then also you have a story that is, it's a juicy, it's delicious for the public. Like it's a good product.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. And also as an actor, when you work with a stalwart like a Sanjay Leela Bhansali or a Rajamouli, I'm sure there are things that you get to learn. There are so many nuances of acting, filmmaking, all those minor detailing that goes into the process of filmmaking that every artist, just by being on the set, also imbibes, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you're constantly, I feel like if you're aware, if you're a person who is aware of, their surroundings,
of what is happening,
you're kind of observing and learning all the time. I mean, I'm talking about this a lot with my wife because we have a baby, a 1.5-year-old, who's constantly, just putting things together, and she's not taking classes, right? She's observing.
She's observing, correct.
It's the power of observation. I keep telling my wife this. It's like, it's all you have to do is look around you. Yeah. That's what this baby is doing. And that's what we're doing all the time.
Yeah.
So exactly. If you put yourself in a room of, master craftsmen, which is what you have on a set like Heeramandi, then you're going to learn. You're going to learn all the time. All you have to do is just watch the DOP, just watch the assistants. Like just everyone is like at the top of their game.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to be a part of. And funny enough, I had been interviewed, years before, and somebody said, "Who would you want to work with? If you had your dream." I was like, "Well, Bhansali and Anurag Kashyap." And then here Bhansali. I mean, it happened. I couldn't believe when it happened. I was like, "Whoa, really, Bhansali?" Like, okay, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So when you got a call, from SLB Productions for Heeramandi, were you screen tested?
Yeah. Not screen. I did an audition.
You did an audition.
Yeah.
And
it was a home, everything's done at home now. I mean, it was during the lockdown. I think it was during the second lockdown or something like that. So I did it at home. And now you
So they gave you the lines and then you had to say those lines in the audition?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a totally different take on the character. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
From what you actually shot?
From what I actually shot. Yeah. There was a whole, yeah. I was supposed to marry one of the girls and be in love with another one. Actually, it was a much different character. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I get seduced and killed? I was like, oh, okay. That's different. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, these things always change. They always morph into it right there. I mean, of course.
But I think that's what makes this entire creative process so interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, by its very nature, creative process is something that cannot be planned, that cannot be, no matter how well you plan, no matter how well the character or the script has been conceptualized, there are going to be instances, there are going to be moments when you will change.
Yeah.
You will change the character, you will change the script. But
it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because life happens and story. I mean, you change one little. You just adjust this character, that adjusts all the stuff that happens with this. And then you have to make these adjustments to these other characters.
Correct.
And that affects everything else. So you're constantly doing these minor tweaks. I'm sure as a writer, you're constantly, and then and as a director, then you're trying to put the whole thing together. So it's constantly just tweaking these characters and storylines to have everything continue to make sense. And so it's amazing creative process.
It is an amazing creative process. Mark, you've also worked with Akshay Kumar. You spoke about
what else would you like to talk about?
How was it working with Akshay Kumar? Akshay Kumar is a huge star in India.
Huge star. Yeah.
So
Megastar.
Yeah.
It was, the first time, so I worked with him on Kesari.
Yeah.
I've worked with him just now in another Dharma film.
Dharma production films, okay.
Shankar Nair versus The Crown. I don't know if I can say that or not, but anyway.
Yeah.
So he's known for, I didn't know when I first worked with him, he's known for reading from cue cards. That's his process. And
sorry, Mark, if you could explain what is reading from cue cards.
So you don't memorize your lines.
Okay.
Instead, I'll just look to the side of your face. We'll do a master shot. I'll look to the side of your face and I'll read off the cue card. So
there's someone holding a cue card.
Yeah.
When Akshay Kumar is reading his lines.
He's got his lines. Yeah.
But I must say,
everybody in the industry knows this.
Okay.
And it's not a thing to poo-poo. I mean, it's a process. It's a style. It's not and I don't know how many people do it, but I know like Robert Downey Jr. does an ear. Sometimes he uses an earpiece. Somebody's feeding him his lines through an earpiece.
Okay.
Brando famously did it.
That is actually a revelation to us,
Yeah. No, I mean it's a rare style, but it is a legit. Some people just work that way. I found it to be like, well, he's shooting multiple projects at the same time. He's doing ribbon cuttings and commercials, and who has time to learn lines if he had just flown in on a helicopter and sure, you set up the cue cards. But what was really lovely about him was I had all this, a huge little speech in Hindi. And the director had changed. And of course, I, had memorized this thing and gone over and over and over for a month. And the director had changed one of the lines last minute. So of course, as I'm delivering my, I kept on fumbling on this one line. So Akshay got his guy. And suddenly Akshay was holding the cue card for me.
That was so sweet.
So it
of
was
him,
very sweet of him.
Yeah.
Very sweet of him. So
Okay.
that was a very sweet moment. But in this last film I did, there are a couple of, there's some guys who came in from out of town, and they very much did not think that, reading off cue cards was the way it should be done. And I think that everyone has their, whatever works for you,
Yeah.
if that works for you.
As long as you're able to deliver.
Yeah.
And what matters is the box office. And at the same time, if people like you.
Yeah.
The very fact that Akshay Kumar is such a huge star goes to show that people have accepted him and people like him.
Yeah.
How does it matter whether he's reading his lines from the cue cards or he's wearing a earpiece? It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And nobody can tell the difference.
Nobody can tell the difference. And that's, because that's the actor in him.
Right. I mean, I think the criticism was they felt like, well, these guys who came in from out of town, they felt like, oh, well, he's not committed. I said, well, he's here. I mean, he's putting up money for the film. He's here. He's starring in the film.
Yeah.
He's doing 100 other projects. I mean, it's anyone's, however you want to work.
Correct.
Whatever works for you.
Correct. So as I said, whatever works for you, and as long as you deliver, as long as you deliver,
exactly.
that is what matters.
Yeah.
Mark, you've worked with one of the most stunning faces of the Indian film industry, Dimple Kapadia. She's not only stunningly beautiful, but she's a great artist.
Yeah.
So, Mark, you did a web series with Dimple Kapadia. How was your experience?
Amazing. Yeah, Sasbahu Flamingo. It was, that was one of those that was just a really, really special project. For multiple reasons. One, I was, I was playing a very stereotypical foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this, love relationship with Dimple.
Lucky you.
That was, and the thing was, I didn't even know who she was. I mean, I knew the name, but I had seen the, whatever that international film that was shot here, whatever it's called. I'd seen her in that, but I didn't know any of her other work. So,
okay.
So I really didn't know who she was. And, so it's a lovely way to work with somebody when you don't know anything about them.
Right.
And so you're just equals, in that sense.
Yeah.
And she's just so down to earth and
she's very easy to work with.
She's easy. She's just, she makes fun of herself. She's witty. She's got she's funny. She's got an odd sense of humor. She's just very easy to be around and easy to talk to. And just a total pleasure to work with, a total pro.
So when you work with, stars like Dimple Kapadia and Akshay Kumar, and I think you've also worked with Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah. I did a commercial with him.
You did a commercial with him.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get to learn a lot of things.
Yeah, he was, oh God, talk about a pro. He's amazing. He had to come in we were there for hours before he got there. He comes in, with this entourage. It's like the doors just open and like sunlight comes into the room, into this dark room. He's there with this entourage and smoking and
Shah Rukh Khan, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, he's just, like a god when he comes into the room. But he's not just a star. I mean, he's such a pro. He came right in, and without missing a beat, the director went right into telling him, okay, now go here. It was some shot around a pool table. He had to do some trick shot on the pool table, say some witty thing to a girl, intimidate some guy with something, and then pick up the deodorant, whatever it was. It was like 5, 6 different things that he had to do in this order very precisely. And without even doing a rehearsal, he shot it perfectly on the first take.
Wow.
That was it. And then they did a couple, then they did some coverage.
Okay.
And then he did a little photo shoot.
Yeah.
And then he was out. He was there for an hour. It was amazing.
Total pro.
Oh my
Total
God.
pro. Yeah.
I was in awe.
Mark, if you could, throw some light on how different it is to work in the East in comparison to the West.
Yeah. First of all, I've worked so much more here than I ever did in the States. I mean, I feel like in the States, I did a lot of theater. I did TV stuff. All of it was everything there is very by the book.
Okay.
You get a call from your agent and you go to the audition and then you get a call back and then you book the job and then you get sent the script and then you show up and everything is like, right? Falls right in order. Here, it could be that you get some, random call and they say, can you fly to Hyderabad tomorrow? I said, okay, for what? Well, it's just like, oh, okay. And then suddenly you're shooting on RRR or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so different. Nothing here. There are some things that are getting a little more by the book or organized. I mean, some things are just organized, like almost all the OTT stuff that I've done. Yeah, you do the audition, your agent negotiates the contract. It used to be that I would only negotiate the contract, that would never happen in the West. You always would have an agent negotiate the contract. Here, there's so many times, so many projects that I negotiated my contract, and then the lawyer would do all their stuff. But it's very different. That in and of itself is very different. There's no union here like there is in the States. I'm still getting checks from Star Trek and all that other, TV
from
crap.
all the TV series that you did.
Yeah. So
that's like a royalty that you get.
Yeah, you get royalties. I mean, because they have a strong union. SAG-AFTRA is a strong union. Okay. Here they have a union, but it's that I don't know what they do, and there's no such thing as residuals or royalties. So that's very different. The casting process is similar, but there it's very stringent and it's very, you can't just walk in anywhere without an appointment. Whereas here, you walk in unannounced to every casting office, practically.
Okay.
And you can announce yourself and say, is there anything that you have that I can audition for today? That would never happen in the US, ever.
Okay.
You'd get thrown out. You would get kicked out, So those kinds of things, like the infrastructure is totally different, and the working condition. I mean, I never worked on anything in the States where I got the script walking to the set, whereas it happens many times here.
Okay.
So that's different too.
Okay. Mark, do you think that Bollywood is a difficult place for outsiders? When I say outsiders, what I mean is, foreign actors. In the past, we've had a few foreign actors, like Bob Christo and a bunch of other actors. But this whole debate about nepotism and people finding it difficult to get break in Bollywood. How would you describe this situation in Bollywood and whether it is actually difficult to get roles as an outsider? What is your take on that?
I think actually, my experience, my story, my journey into this has been pretty unique. I know guys, foreigners, that have come here with no acting experience, with this idea like, I'm going to go to Bollywood and be an actor, or somebody is passing through and they were teaching English somewhere and then they just happen to be passing through and they just suddenly, they get cast in a couple of things because they're white. They're walking down the street and they get tapped on the shoulder and they're cast because they're white. So there's actually one funny story. A friend of mine who's good friends with Adrian Brody, who was Academy Award winner, Adrian Brody. He was here. He had been shooting Darjeeling Unlimited. He and his girlfriend went to Goa. Nobody knew who he was. He got tapped on the shoulder and they wanted to know if he would be an extra in some film. He's like this Academy Award winning actor. Nobody knew who he was. Anyway, so it's easy to get work in that sense. Like you can just walk down the street and somebody will say, "Hey, we need a white guy. Are you an actor?" Okay. So I think in terms of getting work, because there's so few foreigners here. Goras. So that's not I think there are always going to be, but it's stereotypes. I mean, obviously it's stereotypes. It's so much British Raj, and then there's a couple of CIA, and then that's about it. So it's kind of playing the same thing over and over if you choose to do that. I've turned down a lot of those roles just because I feel like, one of those actors, I mean, I don't want to do the same thing over and over. And I try to bring something, different to even if I am doing the same thing, try to bring something different. So, but also I think in terms of, talking about nepotism, like there's nepotism in every field. There's always going to be nepotism, of course. Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to hire my friend who's a DP to be on my film instead of, you know what I mean? Like we're all going to hire our friends and our people that we know and that we, So, I mean, the only difference is, with nepotism is you could be hiring somebody who has no experience or little experience or is not great. So that's the difference.
That. Because eventually the work suffers.
Yeah. But nepotism would never crawl into the space that I work in, Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because you're very uniquely placed, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's only a handful of people in town who can play any of these roles, and
correct.
And then within that very small group, then everyone has a different level of experience.
Yeah. So, Mark, you spoke about getting stereotyped.
Yeah.
But don't you think language is also a barrier?
You mean speaking Hindi?
Speaking Hindi?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like it used to be, but now with all of these, streaming shows that are attempting to make put their hat in the global ring, like Heeramandi has done. I don't think, I barely spoke any Hindi in Heeramandi. I didn't speak any in Rocket Boys. I didn't speak any in Saas Bahu. So in a traditional film, context, like Maharaj was almost all Hindi. And Kesari and, these kinds of, if you're doing a film that's a big, going to be a big release for an Indian audience, then there will be Hindi. But for these OTT shows, I find more and more, it's not really required. I also feel like it's not really, they're not the roles that, it's not like, I've never missed out on a role because I didn't speak Hindi. Like it went to another white guy who spoke Hindi. Like that's never happened.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't feel like it's a thing anymore that it used to be maybe even, 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, OTT in India has completely changed the way the films are being made today.
Yeah.
It has also changed the sensibilities of the Indian audiences at large.
Yeah.
Has the same thing happened in the West? Do you also see less people, going to the theaters or waiting for the movie to get released on a Netflix or any OTT platform? And people only want to go and watch movies, in the theater if a movie is a huge blockbuster,
Right.
or it is a science fiction, or, something which is made on a huge budget.
Something you've got to see on big screen.
Big screen, yeah. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think of course I'm not an expert, and I mean, but nobody is right now. Everyone's just guessing what's going to happen. But it does seem pretty clear that, the only things that are really getting a major release are these big action films. Having said that, then you'll have a film like Anatomy of a Fall that had a great theatrical release. And then
in India, we had 12th Fail, which was made by Vidhu Vinod Chopra. No one expected that movie to do so well at the box office. So yes, there are some blips here and there.
Right.
But majorly, if you go to see, and especially when you look at the theaters and what is happening to multiplexes, there have been instances where they had to cancel shows because people just refused to show up.
Right.
So what do you think is the future of theaters? Do you think OTT will totally dominate how the movies are being made today?
I think we're just going to, I think, again, we'll just kind of have to see how it plays out, because, I mean, clearly it's going to be these big ticket, shows, the Marvel, superhero stuff,
Superhero stuff, yeah.
Big action films. I mean, Guneet's had a huge, great opening with Kill. So it's high level action seems to be the big calling card, or maybe even some romantic comedies, I guess. I mean, I feel like, you just saw, Tom Cruise, whatever he was there for Twister. Yeah, it's all action. Everything is action.
Yeah.
The flip side of it is, as we know, there's so many opportunities for actors now, for writers, for everyone in the business.
Correct.
Because there's so much work.
Correct.
I mean, there's a little bit less now because nobody's watching as much TV as they were
during the lockdown.
Yeah. But still, having said that, there's so much work. So it's a great time. It's a great time for, for everyone in the business, all these storytellers. On many different levels, and people who wouldn't get an opportunity before, stories that wouldn't get a chance to be, have a platform. They do now. So, I mean, I think I feel like it's nothing but good. All of it. All of it.
So ultimately, Mark, good content or content which has substance, or content which resonates with people, will always find a platform. Whether it's OTT or a theater or a multiplex. It's
live theater.
Yeah.
I mean, I just heard somebody talking about, with the whole topic of AI coming into the conversation. I think it was Steve Carell. He was saying, well, you can never go wrong. There's no AI in live theater.
In live theater, yeah.
I mean, so maybe theater will have a comeback, and maybe we'll see even more theater in India, because, theater is a very little tiny niche market here. In the States, it's a huge, complex of I mean, it's a huge ecosystem.
Yeah.
The theater world in the States, but here it's quite different. It's quite different.
But, India's biggest actors, have had a theater background.
Yeah.
So theater was always a part of the Indian acting scene. But in terms of...
for any serious actor, it's always the backbone of your craft. Always.
Correct.
Always.
Correct. But in terms of economics, in terms of the kind of money that theater makes in the West,
right?
India is still to reach at that point, which I unfortunately till now India hasn't been able to.
Yeah. But there is a theater scene here. you know, like NCPA and Prithvi.
And MSCC.
What
Neeta Ambani has done.
Yes, exactly.
That's mind-blowing, you know.
Yeah.
Mark, there is something very interesting that I would still want to talk about with you.
Please.
And that's your book, because this beautiful book, Living the Dream, has, in a way, you know, got you here in India.
Yeah.
So whatever happened during the course of, you know, making this book, acted as a serendipity in quite a few ways in your life.
Yeah, big time.
Right?
Yeah, big time.
You shot the biggest of the actors in this book.
Yeah.
If you could share some interesting anecdotes.
I mean, this book, coming to India, totally changed my life.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
I met my wife here. I mean, it's, you know, this whole, I didn't know anything about Bollywood. I didn't know anything about actors. I mean, the acting community here, you know, I knew the name Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay.
And that was it. So, you know, when I had this idea for this book, a friend of mine, or a new friend of mine at the time, put together a list. I said, create a very diverse list of, you know, actors from A to Z, from, you know, I want every branch of the tree was my sort of go-to metaphor. And he put together this list and I didn't know a single name. Not one.
Okay.
So it was a huge, you know, undertaking. I felt like I was at the base of Mount Everest with no backpack, no rations, nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about it. So this was, you know, I was also very lucky because, I was coming as a white foreigner, who had some experience, but people really didn't even care. Like they were just sort of, they would take meetings without even asking, without even seeing any of my work. So that was very lucky.
Okay.
You know, I was also had a very genuine curiosity about, I wasn't coming here with some ambitious, you know,
with an ulterior motive.
Yeah, with some ulterior motive and this, you know, burning ambition. I'm going to do this thing forcefully. I was just sort of had this curiosity about, well, I know what life looks like for an actor in the West. I'm curious what it looks like here for you. And so it was that genuine curiosity that I think really started to create that serendipitous blossoming of energies here for me. Like I felt like I was being welcome. You know, it was everywhere I turned. It was like people were welcoming me into their homes, and I was getting invited to things where I don't even know how. You know, and I was suddenly sitting with, you know, Dharmendra in his living room, and he's talking about, you know, love, and it was just a miracle. It was incredible.
It's incredible, indeed.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And you know, and of course, you know, because I was photographing everyone from student to Salman to Nasir to, you know, everyone's got, you know, everyone's got baggage, you know.
We would love to hear some of your stories. You know?
No, I mean, it's like, you know, some...
because these stars have larger than life egos.
They have, I mean, everyone has an ego. Everyone. Human beings are built that way. But then, of course,
but when you are a star, it is different.
Tack on, you know, great wealth and fame, then it becomes something else, and understandably so to some degree. You kind of empathize a little bit, but I did have one very peculiar experience where I had met Anil Kapoor.
Okay,
and I. At the time, he was shooting a show in the West, and I can't remember the name of it, but with Kiefer Sutherland.
He was doing some series in the US, right?
Yeah,
it was a web series.
It was a web,
yeah.
And so he had great success with Slumdog, and so anyway, so he was very well known in the West.
Yeah.
So I was telling him. So I got a meeting with him. First of all, I don't even know how I got the meeting, but I did, and I was sitting in his trailer. And I was telling him that he should be on the cover of the book, that he was the best known face, and he was, the Kapoor that everyone, in the West could identify with, and he was agreeing with me that he should be on the cover, and then we met for a while, and then we sort of said, well, let's meet again, and we'll take this further. Cut to about 2 weeks later, I somehow miraculously get an interview with Bowman Irani.
Okay.
So I get to meet, Bowman and shoot him on the set. And I arrive at Mehboob Studios and to shoot Bowman. And I realized when I get there, I said, oh, wow, that's Anil Kapoor's vanity there. Like, maybe he's on the film too. So he was on the film. He was on the film. Yeah. In fact, he was the star of the film and producing the film.
Okay.
And so then I was in Bowman Irani's dressing room photographing him, and Anil comes into the room so they could rehearse their scene. And he greets me. He remembers me from 2 weeks ago and said, oh, yeah, why are you here? And I said, oh, I'm here shooting Bowman for the book that I was telling you about. And he said, oh, okay. And so they do their scene and everything's fine. And then we go in and they're on the set shooting the scene. And then there's like a little break, in between changes and whatever. Yeah. And so we're sitting. It was kind of a little half circle. And I'm sitting with Bowman because that's who I'm there to photograph, obviously. But right across from us is Anil, who is, in this scenario, the king of the castle.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with the court jester, so to speak. I'm hanging out with the court jester in front of the king, who I just told 2 weeks ago is my cover of the book. It was incredibly awkward for me. I think maybe for him, I don't know, but it was very awkward for me. And then, cut to, at the end of the day, I'm leaving and I get a chance to say something to Mr. Kapoor. And I said, I just wanted to follow up on our, conversation about the cover of the book. And he very curtly said that he would not be available. That he was very busy from now on.
So possibly you rubbed him off the wrong way.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So star egos, they are very fragile. But I think it was all very unknowingly done, right?
Of course. Of course. How was I to know? I mean, and I was so naive, and I was so like, what could you do in that situation?
Yeah.
Run, leave, forget, just take Bowman's shot and just run.
Did you get to meet Anil Kapoor after that?
It's funny you mentioned that because I did talk to, I spoke with him about 2 years later, and I again reiterated that it would be great to have him in the book and all of this. And he said, I'm very flattered. I appreciate it. But I do have a biography coming out, and think I'm just going to, that's going to be my book for the year. And I said, sure, I totally understand. It was very cordial and it was very sweet, and he was very kind.
That was your first brush with the star ego.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, I don't know. An awkward situation. So basically this book was sort of, the bug was put in my ear by a man named David Allen Harvey, who's a National Geographic legend photographer.
Yeah.
And so he and I were talking about projects one day because photography was a second career for me. Mm-hmm. So he was saying, you really need to do a book if you're going to, come into this, at this stage in the game. You're not going to be, interning at the New York Times or the LA Times or whatever. So you really need to do a book. So he said, you were an actor in LA. Why don't you do a book on Hollywood actors?
Okay.
Like a real honest to God documentary book, which actually has never been done.
Okay.
Or at the time hadn't been. So that planted the seed. And then round about that time, then that's when I, came to India about a few months, a year, whatever later, came to India, and I thought, that's when I thought, wow, maybe I could do something like this here.
But Mark, what is this book all about? When
yeah. It's about the acting. It's quite a, anthropological kind of dive. It's into the acting community, here in Bombay. Where I've interviewed almost 120 actors and photographed them. So it's a coffee table book. I mean, it's you get to see what life looks like at every different stage of an actor's life, whether they're a student, whether they're struggling, what their apartment looks like compared to what Arjun Kapoor's apartment looks like, compared to, what it looks like backstage if you're Ranveer and you're about to come down onto the stage. I mean, it's like you get to see all this insider, backstage stuff, but it's not just, BTS. Like it's also, you get to see people in their home environments. Hema Malini, is watering her plants. These really mundane acts. So this kind of, this book, everyone that I showed it to was so kind of blown away that it was, how did you even get her in her jeans? Like, Hema, she only wears saris. She is in jeans watering plants. Yeah. So that's the idea of the book, is that, even Dharmender is like, when I photographed him, he thought we were doing a photo shoot. Yeah. So he was all, got all dressed up and was smiling. And I had to do a fake photo shoot after we did the interview just to appease, we're going to do a photo shoot. But the whole time I was interviewing him, I was taking his photo, just clicking. I would just hold off the camera to the, side of, and anyway, so this really is sort of gives one a great insight into not only the acting community, but what the psychology is of an actor who is just moving here. I thought maybe this could be sort of a textbook for some actors who come here and they really are genuinely, they don't know. They're so naive. There's one guy who he just showed up at Shah Rukh Khan's house and thought he would just do a monologue. He literally thought he would just show up and knock on the door and do a monologue and say, put me in the movies.
In one of your movies, yeah.
I mean, how... And he's not the only one. So I thought maybe this could be like a self-help for anyone. Yeah. And there are thousands and thousands of actors who are moving here every day. Yeah. Or every month or whatever the numbers are. But they're, they come in droves. I mean, the same in LA. But here it just seems like, wow, people just don't know. I mean, in LA, at least there's some sort of concept of you have to go to acting school and there's a whole system, set in place. But here, I think there are a lot of people who just show up and another guy was saying, I joined a gym. I arrived in town and I thought I'm going to be an actor, so I have to join a gym. Yeah. He didn't think I have to take acting classes. He thought I have to join a gym and he took a dance class. And so, it talks about all these different things. It talks about the casting couch. It talks about, Ranveer's experience of becoming, that early stage of, getting into fame and fortune. And, it's a huge mix. It's, Nasir talking about his life as a theater actor. I mean, it's a huge, in-depth
it's a very interesting take on Bollywood.
Study of the acting community here.
Yeah. Brilliant. Mark, it has been such a wonderful conversation.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm sure the audiences are going to enjoy this, very candid, casual talk that we've had.
Yeah, we're just hanging.
Yeah. Mark, I wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
And may you continue living the Bollywood dream.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you more.
Thank you.
With the likes of Sanjay, Leela, Bhansali and Rajamouli.
Oh boy. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.